Hello and welcome to Wednesday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic, where today we have a puzzle that's been described as one of the best pencil puzzles of all time. We've had this recommended 4 times in recent days and also requested by people who've been unable to solve it. It's by the terrifying constructor Gliperal, who I'm sure is lovely in real life, but whose puzzles give me the fear because they are always... well, they're absurdly clever, and when solving them you just feel like you have to, I don't know, you hope to hang on to the trail of genius that's being thrown at you, and it's not a comfortable thing to do in front of a lot of people, let me tell you that. But anyway, that is what I'm going to do. It's called Airlocks, and it's a pentominous puzzle. So I'll read you the rules in just a second. Just to mention first that we are trying to reach a milestone over on Patreon. Once we reach 5,000 patrons over there, we're going to release a new incredible Sudoku murder mystery. So please do consider supporting us over there if you can and if you are so inclined. And with that said, let's have a look at the rules to this one. Very simple pentominous puzzles are in terms of rule set. Basically, we have to divide the grid into pentominos, which are orthogonally connected 5-cell regions. So, you know, that's a pentomino. That's a p pentomino, although I've drawn it upside down. That's what a p pentomino might look like. You could draw, what else could we draw? We could draw a t pentomino. Basically, we've just got to tile this grid with pentominos. Cells on either side of a given border must belong to different pentominos. So what that's telling you is that whatever pentomino is in this square must be a different pentomino to what's in that square, because there is a border, this black border, dividing those 2 cells. 2 pentominos of the same shape, including rotations and reflections, cannot share an edge. So what that means is, let's imagine that was in the grid, this T shape here. I'll do it in colour. That would mean that what you cannot do is put that shape in the grid. Not that this would ever work because this cell has been isolated, but it's just an example. This T is clearly touching another T orthogonally along an edge, and that's not allowed. So don't do that or you'll get the puzzle wrong. Now do have a go. As I say, I imagine this is monstrously difficult, but it's the plaudits this puzzle is getting are quite exceptional. We get a lot of puzzles sent to us on the channel that obviously come highly recommended, but this one is a real outlier. Apparently this is amazing. I'm looking forward to trying it, although I am a bit scared. So anyway, do have a go. The way to play is to click the link under the video. I don't remember if I said that already, but that's how to play. Now I get to play. Let's get cracking. Let's get cracking. So how do we get cracking on this one? Probably actually, you know what I might do today? I might use the line drawing tool. I've not used that yet. Right, if you're in our software and you've never used the line drawing tool, this is how you do it. Click the cogwheel. See that enable pen tool? Turn that on. And now we should be able to then click this, you know, the line button over there, where you sort of got the option to put big numbers in, the option to put corner numbers in, the option to put central numbers in, option to put colours in. You should now have a square that allows you to basically do this, draw lines in the grid. So this is interesting to me because look at this 3-cell region here. Obviously, whatever pentomino goes in this square has got to go to this square as well, and the same thing is true there. So actually these 3 squares must be part of the same pentomino. Those 2 squares are part of the same pentomino. Those 2 squares are part of the same pentomino. Let's just draw in a whole load of cells that have to be part of the same pentomino. Is that it? That might be it. Oh dear. Is that really all the... Good grief. Good grief. I mean, is that really all of the gimmies we get here? That's not many. I'm tempted to investigate this sort of cluttered area down here. I'm just trying to see if I can see anything else that's obvious to me. I can see that you can't have the same pentomino in these 4 cells because of this black line here. I don't know what that means. That means that could be an N, for example, in either direction, or it could be an L or a U. Okay, this is not... Right, okay, what on earth do you do to get started on this puzzle? Sorry, I will. I'm sure I'll get something. Just bear with me a second. I'm just trying to... Right, okay, maybe... I'm quite interested in this little area here, because that... Yeah, here's an interesting point. Let me just highlight these cells in colour. Okay, is it possible that there is no pentomino crossing this boundary or crossing this boundary? Well, the answer is no, because if we were going to try and fill this 10-cell region with 2 pentominos, there's no way of doing that without them being the same pentomino and touching each other. So if we try and put a P in, obviously that will be a P as well. If you try and put an I in, that will be an I as well. If you try and put an L in, like that, you have to put an... Oh, sorry, my clicking is awful. But if that was an L, you can see you'd have to put an L next to it. So you can't have... Right, hang on. So what does that mean? That means that there must be a pentomino crossing into this boundary, across this boundary, and presumably crossing out the other side as well. Yes, okay, that's true, isn't it? Because the moment that you... Let's get rid of the highlighting and go back to drawing lines. The moment a pentomino crosses this boundary, let's say it drew a P like that. I know that looks like a D, but it is a P pentomino. Then you've got 6 cells left over here, so obviously something is going to have to stick out here, because everything in a pentominous puzzle should be mod 5. 5 is the key number. Whenever you're looking to divide grids into areas, you always have to make sure those areas are divisible by 5. Otherwise, you're going to be left off, or you're going to be left with a tetromino, or a triomino, or a domino, or a monomino. I can never say that. A monomino. A monomino. You can't have a monomino, which is just basically one cell. If you have a monomino, you've got problems. And you would be left with a monomino here. Look, if that was a U, and you're just trying to, this cell has to connect to something else, so it has to cross the boundary. Anyway, what does all this mean? Well, I think what it means is that this little 2x5 area or 5x2 area has got to have pentominos crossing into its boundary. This might be why it's called airlocks, actually. Is that why? Right, hang on. That's got me wondering. So now I'm wondering if there are lots of areas of this puzzle that just basically have one entrance and one exit. Well... Oh, yes, there is. Look at that. That's another. That's the same. Look at this area here. This is another area that can't... Yeah, it's the same, exactly the same logic. Those squares have only one entrance and one exit. So imagine this exit and this entrance, or whichever way around that is. Imagine they were closed off and you were trying to fill these 10 squares with 2 pentominos. You would have to have a repeated pentomino of the same shape. So we've got to interfere with this 10 cell region, and the only way of interfering with it is going to be to cross the boundary. And once you cross the boundary on one side, you must cross the boundary on the other side, because otherwise the count will be wrong. That's quite interesting. I'm tempted. Oh, hang on. With the line tool, if you click on a boundary, you get a little X in. So, do we now... The problem is, with all of these areas, though, I mean, even a quick examination of this suggests to me there are loads of different ways of filling this region. Unless you know how many of the... Unless you know how big this I mean, I know this pentomino is going to be of size 5, but what I mean is how many cells it's taking of the 10 region. Unless you know that number, there's a multitude of ways of filling this. I mean, you could do something like that. But if this takes more cells, obviously that's going to impact everything else as well. So, I don't really know what that means. I think what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to look down here. This area, the first time we open, well, I saw the puzzle. This looks cluttered to me. So, is this cluttered? So I guess the first question we could ask is it possible that these two squares aren't connected? Now, if they're not connected, right, that does not work. Because if these aren't connected, look what happens to this strand. This strand has to turn this way. Now, it cannot take this square, because if it does, this black boundary would not be respected. So it has to continue. But now this, whatever goes in this square here, has no way of reaching a total of 5. It's blocked in by the pentomino that we've just drawn. So actually we can now say those two squares are the same. So can we do better than that? What if it goes upwards? It could take that square, but that's all it could take. Otherwise it's going to block these in again. Or it could come this way. Oh, right. So what we can conclude is I think it has to take this square here. Because if this, if this pentomino doesn't take this square here, you can see its fifth cell is impossible. It can't take this cell because of the black boundary. It can't take this cell because it would block in a 2-cell domino here. So that's this is a forced line segment, if you like. Now, is that true on the other side? So I feel like it must be. Yes, this one's got, yes, this is exactly the same logic. So that's forced. Now, is that forced? If we don't take this, yes, it's absolutely identical. That is also forced. So now, right, okay. Now, what you can't have here is this being a 2x2 and this being a 2x2. Because obviously this left 2x2 and this right 2x2 will form p pentominoes which will connect to one another. So what that means, I think, is that one of these pentominoes, or one of these triominoes, I should say, is going to have to take this domino. Yeah, because we can't, otherwise we're going to get isolation. So these are a pair, these two squares here are a pair, and they join to one side of this or the other. Now let me just look at what that looks like. So if we have something like that, can this yes, that can just be a U, look, easily, or it could even be maybe a W. Yeah, okay, so there's loads of options. Right, okay. What about this domino? This domino here. Yeah, okay. It's not possible for this to be part of different pentominoes, look, because this pentomino now is of size 4 and it has no way of joining to another cell that isn't part of a 2-cell pentomino sequence. So it can't join to this, because we know those two are joined together. So if it did join to this, it would be of size 6, and it can't join to this for exactly the same reason. So what that tells us is these two are the same. But it doesn't tell us whether these two join to this triomino or not. Right, okay. Wow. And all of this is lovely and all, but it doesn't actually, we've still got absolutely no, I've not even got a 4-cell pentomino drawn in. I mean, I know there's no such thing as a 4-cell pentomino. What I mean is I've not got 4 cells of a single pentomino drawn in. Are there more regions of this grid like these 10-cell regions here? Because if there are, I'm not spotting them. But that does feel, these feel really interesting, don't they? So we're looking for areas that only have one entrance and exit. Maybe this area at the top of the grid. Okay, yeah, you can do something similar there, I think. Let's use purple basically for any area that looks... So what I'm wondering is, can I create an area up here which is rotationally symmetric and 10 cells large? And I think you can, like that. So is it possible that this region has no pentomino crossing this boundary or this boundary? This has sort of got 2 boundaries, but it's not possible, is it? Because if this was on its own, however we draw pentominoes into this 10-cell region, we'll have to duplicate the pentomino. So I think that means that must be a boundary. And once this is a boundary, to make the count correct, there must be an adjustment either there, or perhaps both of those. But there's some adjustment crossing up here or down there. Yeah, this is quite... Oh no. Everywhere else seems to have more than one option though. For example, if you look at the white space in the top of the grid, that's got an exit here, it's got an exit here, and it's got an exit here. So it's not just got it's not just got an entrance and an exit, it's like got a third way, and the third way is going to make things very difficult. What about this area here? That's got an entrance and exit there too. And whatever goes on here. This bottom left area has got whatever goes down here as one potential way of escaping. It can escape through this 3-cell region, and it can escape at the top. Oh, this middle region, it can escape through there, escape through here, and escape through here. So everywhere else apart from the 3... Actually, I'll highlight this one again. Apart from these parts of the grid, I think it's true to say that everywhere else is not in such a natural airlock. Let's use the word airlock because that's what Gliperal is suggesting. This is, I mean, it's fascinating, I will say that, but this is not easy, is it? Now, okay, but... And this... I don't think we know how this resolves, do we? It could just be like that. Oh, I was about to say, but that's impossible. But it's not impossible because you could have a U next to an L. I was wondering whether it was going to force like a U next to a U or an L next to an L, but I don't think it does have to do that. So it could take just 2 cells of this sort of area here, or I think it can take the 3 cells, which we already looked at. So, okay, what do we do now? We shall I don't know whether we should try and... Maybe we've got to look at the areas of the grid and see how big they are and how close to being mod 5 they are. That's not such a silly idea actually, is it? Let's do that. So let's switch to colours now, and we're going to highlight where is the likely weakest part of this puzzle. The only bit I want to look at, to be honest, is the middle. And the reason I want to look at the middle is that at least I can define the middle. I can see it's got an exit there, an exit there, and an exit here. This bottom left region, I'm not sure I've got my head around quite how this works. The top right, I'm not sure I understand how that bit works. Yeah, okay, I'm going to look at the middle. I'm going to look at the middle. There's the decision taken. So what is it I'm trying to do here? I'm trying to work out whether something is mod 5 or not, or how far away from mod 5 it is, without including the entrances and the exits. So let's look at that region. Yeah, okay, and we'll see how big this is. So this is 9. How a bit large is that? That's another 9 along there, actually. So we've got 18, we've got 26 in those squares. Plus 9 here is 35. Plus 4 here is 39. So this blue area, I think, is 39 large at the moment. But we know it's going to have to... We know that there's a pentomino crossing this boundary. So this square is in effect blue, and this square is in effect blue. So that takes the count to 41. And we've got to make sure that the count is divisible by 5. Which could, for example, mean that we take this square, and those 3 squares. And that would work nicely, wouldn't it? That would get us to a count of 45. And is there anything wrong with that? The answer is no. How on earth do you do this then? If this wasn't taken, if this boundary was, if there was a black line down here, then we would be on 41 and we'd have to get to 45. So either this one or both would have to take another 4 cells in total. Oh dear, dear, dear. I don't think this is right, is it? This does not feel like the way to approach this, to be honest. I don't think I'm learning anything. Let's have a look, bottom left. I'm getting more concerned here than ever. That, oh, how do I highlight this to even know what the count is? Maybe I leave out this. I don't know whether this is in, do I? So leave that out and see what that looks like. Oh, and I don't know whether it's going in there. Gosh, this is really tricky. So those cells, I think, are the base cells for the bottom. This bottom area. Don't like the colour red. I'm using green. Ah! Right, here we go. So how many cells have I got in green? I have got 5, 8. Actually, let's do it a different way. Let's try and find a big area of the grid and then add on to that. So that is an area that's 3 by 7. So that's 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. So this is 25, which is mod 5. But that one... Right, that's a little bit interesting. Look, this one has to be breached. So we actually, because this cell is important because of this region, this is now at the count of 26. And we need 4 more. Now, is there a way of concluding anything about this? We can get 2 more here. So we're on 26. If we took 2 more there, we'd be on 28. Then we couldn't take that, or we'd get to... oh no, that could be 3 or 4, depending on whether... So if this does cross this boundary, it's either going to be just taking those 3 squares exactly, in which case that I think would have to be a T pentomino, or it could take this square as well and be an X pentomino. So if this boundary is crossed by a pentomino, the 25 region is picking up either 3 or 4 cells to its count. So, either 3 or 4. So we're on 26. Let's imagine that this boundary is real, that there's a black line dividing this 25 region from the 3 region. Is that broken for any reason? So now we're on 26 up here. Now the interesting thing about that, at least we can at least I can draw a positive conclusion about this, because what you can't do, let me show you, what you can't do if this is the 26th cell of the green region is increase this pentomino by 4 more up here, because then it will be a size 6. So the only place that you can get, you have to get this. If this boundary is respected, those 2 would have to be green. And now the count would be 3 more than 25, which is 28. And you'd need to take 2 more from up here. Now, if I can break this, I will know that this boundary is not a real boundary. So is there a way we can conclude that this cannot take exactly 2 more cells into the purple region? That's the challenge. Doesn't look good, does it? So if it's taking 2 more, it must be joined to that square. So that's a forced connection. I can't see a problem with this. I really can't. I mean, it could just do that. Just make an I. That's fine, isn't it? That doesn't prevent, for example, a P there and an L across the top. Something like that. That would work. Oh, dear. So, is there another reason this breaks? This boundary is real. This is... oh, so that's made a P down here. So this one... so that forms a Z. Oh, good grief, I've broken it. Yes, right. This breaks. This breaks. This is not easy at all to see, but it's all I've got. So I'm definitely going with it. Now, remember this is a boundary. So this, what is this pentomino? Well, it's only got 3 cells at the moment, so it's got to take that cell. And it has to be delineated from this square and this square, so it must also take this square. This is a T. Well, what's this then? That's forced to be a Z, connected to a Z. That's no good. This does not work. And if this does not work, this boundary is this hypothetical black bar that I've drawn down to delineate the 25 region from the 3 region does not exist. And if it doesn't exist, let's go back. Let's go back to here. This must be green. And if that must be green... oh, hang on. How do I do that? Like that. if that must be green, now we know that at least. We don't know whether this square is also green, but now we've got a completely different count. We don't know about this. I'm sorry. That's, I don't think, correct, is it? Because that was a consequence of us imagining that this boundary was respected. So we get to here, but we've got a totally different count on the 25 now. We've got to work out this count again. So we've got, oh goodness, we've got 21 here. 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. So we've got 29. And we have to get to something mod 5. So we're either taking one more cell. Let's make that 29 so I remember it. So we're either taking one more cell or 6 more cells. 6 more cells is probably impossible, isn't it? How would you take 6 more green cells? You can take 2 here, 1 here, that's 3. You'd have to take 3 more up here. Oh, which you can do. Oh, bobbins. Right, okay, that's possible. That's possible. Oh no. So, I'm just wondering, can we do something now with the 39 again? Because now we're adding a different number on. If this boundary is... Oh goodness, this is very complicated. This is 39. I don't think... Yeah, 39 in the blue, which goes up to 41 with those 2 forced blue squares in effect. That's 41. Now, if these are all blue, we get to 45, which is mod 5. Which is beautiful, isn't it? That almost feels like it's likely to be correct, in which case this would be an X. So is there any reason this doesn't work? So those 2 would both be blue. Well, we know those 2 are both blue. It might be simpler if I made these 2 blue, to be honest, and change the count of this to 41. Well, here's a deduction for you. Here is a deduction. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ah, this is right. Okay. This is not correct. This is not correct because, well, when I say this is not correct, what I'm saying is that this boundary, if this is an X pentomino like this, so this count goes to 45 as a result of adding on those 4 squares, we still have to take more squares in somewhere, because this can't stop here. Because if this stops here, this pentomino that's joined to this square, then there are 5. This square effectively becomes purple, because there's no... And if this square effectively becomes purple, what is this region? It's a 10-cell rotationally symmetrical region, and there's no way of filling these squares without repeating a pentomino. You can go 2 I's if you want, or you can go a P, but you'll always have another P. This pentomino must come another cell at least. Now that throws the count all over the place then for this blue region, because the blue region So if the blue region doesn't take these 4 squares, then we have to take 4 more cells from here and or here. And if it does take those squares, it has to take 5 more squares from here or here. Right, okay, so we now have learnt that both of these have got to extend, I think. Let me just double check the logic, and apologies if people think I'm being slow here, but I don't think this is a simple puzzle at all. My count of the blues is at 41. I need to get it to something divisible by 5. If this is an X pentomino, this count changes to 45, but we know this has to extend 1 more, otherwise we have a symmetrical 10-cell region. So we're going to be at 46 at least, and we've got to get to 50 then, which means that we're going to need 4 more squares from here and or here. Whereas if we don't take this X pentomino, we're going to be at 41. This we know has to extend and become 42, and we still need to have 3 more from there. Yeah, which still means, because this is already a 2-cell pentomino and would have to become a 3-cell pentomino to get the count to 42, 43, 44 to create a pentomino up here still requires this to grow. So this needs to grow and this needs to grow. They both need to grow. Now, what does that mean? Right, this is important for this one. This one's fairly straightforward, I think. How does this grow? So the question I think to ask is this square in its growth or not? And the answer is yes, this is in its growth. Because how do we prove that? Well, let's imagine that this, when it grows, and we know it must grow by at least 1 cell, let's say it doesn't take this square. So what pentomino is this square part of? Well, it'll have to join, go there, it'll have to go there. Where does its next cell where does it take its next cell, its 5th cell? It can't take this one because this needs to grow. So this is going to take this one, and it can't take that one because then it will be of size 6. So this, oh whoopsie, sorry. So this cell here, this square must be part of this pentomino, and therefore we can do that, and therefore we can change the colour of this to blue. Now, good grief, right. Now, is this as far as our blue one is allowed to go? Let's imagine the blue stops here. So it just takes 2 cells into this 10 region that we've been looking at. Let's say it stops. What does this square do? Where does this go? Well, it's going to have to go to here. That's very clear. Now it can't join to this one because that's going to isolate these 4 squares, and they can't form a pentomino because there are only 4 squares. So this one's going to have to do that. But now, what does this one do? Well, it's going to have to take those 2 squares, and it can't take these. It can't take that one or that one because these are delineated. Oh no, that one isn't. That's not right. That one it could take, look. Could it do that? That might be possible, look. Right, okay, well that's interesting. I didn't spot that. So, is there anything wrong with that configuration? Are we leaving behind the wrong count in this region? Perhaps. That's the question. Good grief, this is complicated. Yeah, this is very difficult actually to fill this region, isn't it? We've basically got a choice in this area now. We either have a P pentomino here, and then this one is broken. Oh no, it could do, no, it could be an F, and that could be an L. Oh no, that works. No, I'm wrong. I'm absolutely wrong. That is not broken at all. So we've got to unwind all this, get to here. So this actually is possible, I think. At least I can't see why it's not possible. So we're going to have to unwind all this. Now, so that means that this can be, I think, a 2. Let's just check. What else does this have to do then? Don't know. But so these 3 are all part of the same pentomino. This is all part of the same pentomino. Our 42 count has now changed slightly, but I can't remember what to. Hang on, let's double check this, because if I get this wrong, obviously it's going to have fairly major implications for the solve. So that's 26, 32, 37, 42 we're on at the moment, so that becomes 42. But we know this is growing. So we're going to get to at least 43. And then depending on whether this is in or not, we'll get to something else. Do I have to look at another area, or do I need to consider? I haven't really thought about this area and whether this is constrained or not. So the question is now, we've worked out that it's possible that this region stops here. So if it does stop here, we've got a choice again. Either this stays at a 40, either this grows one. No, it can't just grow one more then. Hang on, we're at 42. Either this takes 3 more, and this boundary is respected, or this boundary is breached, in which case this becomes 46, and we have to take 4 more squares up here, which we can't do. That will not work unless we extend this. So the question is, I think, can we take 3 more cells here without breaking this region? And I don't know the answer to that, but I'm going to have a look. So if we took that square, we've still got to take 2 more. It's tricky actually. You can't take those because this is going to force this to be a P pentomino next to it, because there's only one exit. So that won't work at all. So what about a Y, for example? No, that's not going to. Oh, is that the point? Can you never take 4 squares? It is the point. I am so daft sometimes. Oh my goodness. It's just a symmetrical logic from the other side. Oh, it's too clever, this. It's too clever. So, I spent a few minutes earlier pontificating about how this cannot be a 1-cell region, because if it's a 1-cell region, we create this region on the other side, which is a 10-cell symmetrical region. But the logic is identical, of course. What would happen if this just sticks in 1 square? Well, if this just sticks in one square, this becomes a 10-cell symmetrical region. So this can never take it can never take 3 more squares. This is huge. This is absolutely huge and incredibly beautiful. And I'm feeling incredibly stupid. But never mind about my stupidity. Let's just admire Gliperal's. Oh, well, it's just incredible. It's incredible what he's done here. Come on, now think. So this means that I cannot have just 3 more cells up here. That's impossible. So what does that mean? Does that mean this needs to grow again? I think that's my gut reaction, is this needs to grow again. So if these squares are all in, we get to a count of 46. We know that this can't take more than 2 more squares. That would be 48, so this would need to grow 2 squares. That's one possibility, is that this grows 2 squares. The other situation that exists is that this has to grow 1 square because this can't take 3 squares. So this still needs to grow. Right, let's extend this one again then. Which cell can we take? Actually, this is interesting, isn't it? Because can it take that square? I don't think so. Because this square now has to form an L, and now we're going to isolate some cells over there. So that's no use at all. So we're going to have to take that square for certain, and that's another little win for us, isn't it? So we've now got right. If this stops here, so let's imagine there's no more blue squares in this part of the grid, then that would have to be an N. What's this down here? I mustn't isolate squares. So those are in the same pentomino. I can't join to this. The moment I join to this, I'm leaving behind the wrong count. So I can't join to that, so I've got to do that, and that's an N connected to an N, and that's broken. Now, this is... So this needs to grow again. This little S tetromino has to grow 1 more cell into the purples down here. Now, it's got a choice. It could go that way and become an F pentomino, and that's broken. There's no way of getting this without leaving pentominoes behind, so it doesn't take that. So it must take this square, and that means we have our first pentomino. That is a P pentomino. Now what's this one now? We've got 6 cells left. So we can never connect anything to this sticky out bit, because if we do, we're going to isolate the wrong count of squares. So that must be a U. I don't know what that means, but I've now got 2 pentominoes. That's a forced beginning to a pentomino. Now, can we do some stuff up here maybe? That's the question. So if there's a boundary there, that would be forced. And then that's broken. Look at that. That's broken because this is an L, and once this reaches a count of 4, it either has to be an L or it has to be a U, and it connects to this U. So that does not work. So, oh, whoopsie. So this boundary is wrong. That means we have to go in there. Now, so let's imagine we do that. That would be a Y next to an I. That doesn't work either, because now what do we put into this square? This square has to take that one. It can't isolate this square, so it has to take this square, which means it has to take this square. Now this square is isolated unless it's joined, and that's a p connected to a p, which doesn't work. So that's not an option. So this must extend up into the top row somehow. And if it extends up into the top row, in order not to isolate, it must take this square. And it can't be a p, so it must be an f. There we go. I think that logic is okay. Now those three are in the same pentomino. Now if that does that and takes one more this way, it can't then come down, because that will create an a u next to this u, which won't work. Now if that's a y, we run into the same p pentomino problem we've already looked at. So it's not a y. Could it be an I? No, this is impossible again. This is impossible again because we're still running into problems with this square. This square must not be part of a u, and it must not be part of a p. And how can it be part of anything else? Unless I'm missing an option, there is... I mean, obviously it can be part of an n, for example, but you're going to leave squares behind, which we can't do. So this just doesn't work, I don't think. I don't think this square is in this shape, so I think this has to drop down. Now, if it forms an n, that doesn't work, because now what do you do with those three squares? They've got to poke out. Now, we can't create an n, because that's going to connect to this n, so we're going to have to create a v, and now this square's isolated. So this, I think, is a v, and we're actually making some progress here. Now, that can't... I think these two have to be connected, because if they're not, the only option at the top is a v next to another v. So those have to be connected. But then maybe that could be an L. Oh, okay. Maybe that's as far as we take that logic. We can have a p there as well. Okay. So maybe that's as far as we can go. But this is huge. This is absolutely huge progress, because now I know the count down here. I just can't remember how that changes this 42 number. So we've got 5, 10, plus 9 is 19, 28, 36, 40, 44. I'm not even sure I trust that number, you know. Really, I'm not sure whether I trust that number. I think I'm going to do it again just to make sure. I've got 20 there for sure. Sorry, not 20. I've got 10 there for sure. I've got 9 there, so that's definitely 19. Definitely 28, 30, 36, 40, 44. Yeah, 44. Okay. Now, if this boundary is crossed, we add 4 to this count and we get 48, and we're adding 2 up here, which we can do because we're not adding 3 up there, which we know is the problem. If, on the other hand, we just add 1 to this, that would also, I think, be an okay count, wouldn't it? I'm not sure. I think that's okay. So I think we have to look somewhere else. I've had nearly an hour on this puzzle. I'm nowhere near finishing it. I'm not even sure I'm doing it in the right way. Have I learned enough? I now know. I know more than I did about the count in the bottom right, perhaps. So maybe that's where I should look next. I don't know whether this is part of the bottom right or not. Right, let's... I think I changed the colour of all of that now, because that's all we... Well, no, mod 5. Come on, Simon, stop being slow. Those squares are all part of a pentominoes. Those. And we don't know what's happening through that gap there. Let's make those orange. This square is definitely orange now. So, right, what's the count of this? That's the next question. We've got 15 here. 21. 24. 29. 33. Okay, let's put that in. 33. So we've got to take 2 more. Or... no, hang on a moment. That's not right. We have to take that square. We have to take this square. Because if we don't, what's this square part of? It would have to be part of the top region, and that would make all of those in the same pentomino, which is impossible. So there, that's orange. This count becomes 34. Maybe I should have looked here before, although I didn't know the size of that, so maybe this is still okay and not inefficient. So I'm on 34. Now if I take those 2, that puts me on 36. This is beautiful. This is unbelievable. Right, are these orange? No, they're not. Because that was going to make this count 36, which means I have to get to mod 5. I've got to put 4 more squares as orange up here. Well, clearly, that's all part of the same pentomino then, and this black line is not respected. So that's green. That's absolutely extraordinary. So now we know the count of orange. And we know more about the count of green. This is so exciting. This is so exciting because... I now know the only way of getting this mod 5 is to add 1 more orange square. So that is orange. So this top region now, we're going to have to add this up. I don't know what this is going to be, but all of those are in the same colour. This is now a 35 count. The 29 count is now has been changed probably to 31, but I'm going to have to check it, aren't I? So I've now got 28 in those. 31, yeah, okay. That's what we thought. 31. 31 is nowhere near mod. Oh, I think I might have broken this. No, I haven't. Or maybe I might have done, but I don't think I have. This 31, how on earth do we get that to be a mod 5 number in green now? I can get 1 more square here, that's 32, and 3 more added on to this would give me 35. There's no other way to getting to a mod 5 number. So this has told us now that this square is green. It's not blue. It's told us that that is an X pentomino. It's told us this needs to grow 3 more cells. I've got no clue what that means in terms of where it goes. Which means there's sort of a boundary here. So if it takes that one, it would have to not take this one, so that would have to do that, which means could that be a U, and that could be a Y, and then We could have an N across the top, maybe. Don't know is the answer. I can't remember if this was in there or not. I don't think it was. Let's imagine that these are not connected. So if we're doing this, then this one has to extend up. This one needs to take another 3 more. So this one is now forced to do that. That doesn't work. Look, this has got nowhere to go. This has got to get out, and this is trapped in. So actually we can say that that is forced. And it's different from this. This counts now. It's correct once we extend this to be, in fact, let's just make it 32, because it is 32 now, the count of the green. Now I've done something to my count of the count of the blue, haven't I? Because I turned that into from being a blue into being a green. So I think this has become a 43, which means this has to grow 2 more. Which is interesting. I don't know what it means, but it's interesting. So it's going to grow 2 more. Let's imagine it took those 2. That would then... that's interesting. So this can't connect to that. Because once this grows 2 more, if it took those 2 as well, it would be of size 6. So actually that's interesting. We can go back to line segments. That's got to do that, therefore. This is growing 2 more, not 3 more, so it must come here. So this has got to continue. It mustn't isolate anything. That's got to be drawn in. We're not sure how this works. I hope I haven't miscounted when I added this up. It's so easy to do this, though. I'm now terrified that I have miscounted this. Let's double check. Sorry. I'm just paranoid. So this is 19, 28, 30. Now only 35, 39. 43. Okay, good. So this does take 2 more blues here. So I think all the logic I just did there was okay. Let's maybe have a look at the red region, which I haven't looked at all yet. Now, that's got to be a pentomino, and that's got to be a respective boundary. So we've got to do that. The same is true of the orange. These can't be the same pentomino, so one of these will be an L, one of them will be a U. And right, and let's count the number of cells that we've got here. So I don't know how big this grid is. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So that must be 13, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 24, and 8. Is 32. So I think this is 32 at the moment, and it's got to reach but we can work out what's going on. Once this takes 2 more blues, it'll then have a 5 purple region, and this will take 1 more here. So 2 of these are red. That gets us to a 34 count, which would suggest 1 more square here has got to be red to get us to a 35 count. Now, if that's correct, you're going to go 3 greens. Yes, that's right, isn't it? That's actually working, because then I've got 5 purples. That leaves 1 possible for a red. So I think the count is working now. We've got to take 2 more here somehow. Oh goodness, I don't actually know though whether Oh, I know what I can do. I can do simple things. This, yes, yeah. What does that connect to? This line segment, that's got to connect to these. So that's a p pentomino down here. Now this can't isolate these, so that becomes, this is a z. That one's got to turn up there. Can we keep that going? I don't know. Maybe there's some stuff we can do in this bottom left corner now. That's... Are we getting any nearer solving this puzzle? I think we're getting a bit nearer. But I'm not sure where to look. Let me think about this region, I think. So, can we deduce anything? In particular, I'm wondering if those two have to be in the same. If they're not in the same pentomino, we could do that. Could be connected. Oh, this is going to get the wrong count. Yeah, I mean, what does this do next? Never mind what Katie did next. What did this do? What does this do next? It can't go up there. It's isolated 3 cells. It can't turn right. It's isolated 1 cell. So if these are separate strands, there's just no way this works. These are definitely together. Now this is interesting because there's a P here. So what we can't do is have a P here. That means that wherever this goes up, and it's got to go up in either this square or this square, because it can't take both of those squares or it will be a P, it must continue going up. Now I'm thinking that's going to be broken then. Because now what does this do? The answer is break the puzzle. That does not work. Because this now can't be a P, it'll have to be a U, and this square will be isolated. And it can't join up, or it's going to be 6 cells. So it doesn't do that. That's what we've concluded. It must do this. This is not part of this pentomino, so that comes up. That forces this to be an L. We've got an L in the corner, not a 3 in the corner today. Surely this connects here. If it doesn't connect here, yeah, you're isolating the wrong count. So that connects to this. This can't be a T because that cell's isolated, so that is an F. This square is now forced to be an N of all things, and look, the P is still possible there. Oh, this is just so satisfying, I cannot tell you. Now, what does this mean? So now, is this one restricted? This one sees an F and a Z. Right, this is important. It can't take this square. If it takes this square, which is its 5th square? It can't do that, that's a Z. It can't do that, that's an F, and it's connected to this one. So this one must turn up. And now it can't isolate, so that is an NO. No, that's okay. That N is not touching anything it's not meant to. So those 3 squares become the same. This can't turn right, I don't think, because this pentomino now has to be a U, and it will connect to a U. I'm not sure if the count's wrong here, though, so it's got to go up. No, this is okay, because we can stop this being a U if we make it a P, and do that, which allows this to be an L. Oh, this is absolutely terrifying, because if I've made a logical error, I'm going to get pentominos touching one another that shouldn't, and I don't think there's a mistake there. That looks okay to me. So now this square is isolated, so that must join there. This square, well, this is only a 4-cell pentomino, so that must be an F. This we don't know about yet. Although we now know it definitely can't be an L for 2 reasons. And it could never be an F. So Okay, that feels reasonably useful. What do we look at now? Where do we go next? That's the question. It's probably going to be the longest solve of a puzzle that's not a crossword or a Sudoku on the channel, I think. Although actually Mark did one of those Japanese sums once that was quite vicious, wasn't he? Wasn't it? Right, come on. What do we do next? What was it? We worked out this had to extend 1, I think. But we don't know whether it's taking this junction or this junction. This has got to extend 3. Ah, look, we've now got a P here. So we've got similar logic there. This cannot extend to both of these two squares. It must pick one, and once it's picked one, it must extend 2 squares. So I'm tempted to put this one in on the basis that I can't think this is going to work, and indeed it doesn't, because now this one has to wrap over the top, and which square are you going to take for this one? You have to do this, and this square's isolated. This is gorgeous. So now we go there. This square is now definitely not part of this region. Now it must be part of this one, because if it's not, this one can never reach its potential and become a 5-cell region. So that is forced. Is there anything preventing this being a U? I don't think there is. In fact, it is a U, isn't it? Because if it's not a U, it's an L, and that's an L connected to an L. So this is a U, this is a Y, this now can't be a Y, so it can't do that, because then it's going to connect Y to Y. It could be an N, it probably is an N, because if it's not an N, it can't be an L, it isolates a square, and it can't be an I, because it isolates 3 squares. So this is an N, this is now a Y, I think. That's not connecting Y's to Y's, which is good. I've got a whole massive area up here to figure out. It's like we're left with 3 puzzles, I think. We're left with the puzzle of the extension of the blue, the puzzle of the continuation of the orange, and the puzzle of the red. So, do we do the blue first? That's probably what we should do. The blue we know the most about. We know this region here has to extend 2 more. Now, so I'm tempted to ask. Actually, it looks to me like we might have a problem with the P. If we go up here, and say we don't take this square here. Let's say that this square is not blue. That forces that configuration. And now we have the question, what does this square have the option to be? The answer is nothing useful, because we can't just connect it through here to make a 5-cell region, because that's isolating cells. So we know that this is not part of this. And it can't be an N, because it will be connected to an N. So I think the only option it has is to be a P, and that's connecting to that P. So, this is important. That means that does extend. Now, if this extends, so it's either, let's just make this blue now. So it looks like it has got the option to be a Y to me. I'm not sure whether that's true, but if it's a Y. Wow, you can then hide a P there, and that looks like it might work. If it's not a Y, it can't be an L, that's going to isolate this square. It'll have to be an I. If it's an I, this can't be an L. Ah, it's beautiful. This can't be an L, because it's connected to that L, and it can't be an I because it will connect to an I. So this is not correct. It is a Y. This now cannot be a Y and therefore has to be a P. This now can't take this square because it's going to connect to itself, so it has to be a U. That forces that up one. Now remember, this one can't be the same as that one, so that's got to clip round the corner there. That's got to do this and that. This has got to come out. That's got to come out. Looks like we might get our first W in the grid in the top right. This is part of a region. Oh, here you go. Here you go. Is this a W? The answer is no, for the most beautiful reason. If this is a W, you leave behind 10 squares in a symmetrical region. So whatever you fill these 10 squares with will be the same pentomino, and that will break the puzzle. So that is not a W. So I don't quite know what that means. It means that must come across again. It must come across 2, I suppose. Now, that can be a Y, like that. If that's a Y, this one... Oh, we mustn't make this a P, though. So that could be an N, and that could be an L. That probably is correct, isn't it, looking at it? Because that actually has worked. So, but the only... Right, but that wasn't done logically. That was just noting that that was forced once we made some assumptions. So let's try and disprove the alternative. So the alternative, I can't actually remember what it was I just proved, would be a Y there, would it? So then I think this is what I just did. I can't remember what I just did. Yeah, this would be an I is the alternative. So that would be an R. So that clearly breaks because it leaves behind a P shape. Right, so that's the key point. You can't leave behind a P. So once you reach this position, the only way of not leaving behind a P is to force this to come down, this to do this to come across, and then you can't make this a P, so you have to extend this to become an L. The L is not touching another L, and we can fill the last square with an N at the top. So that's the top done. We're just left with the orange to fill, I think. Ah, now look, we've got a U here next to what could be another U, so that mustn't be a U. That's got to do this. Surely this has got, yeah, this has got to be a P, because it can't be another U. And you've got this sort of how on earth are you going to fill these squares problem without isolating. So you can't do something like that. This square is going to be isolated. So you know those three have all got to be part of the same pentomino. This can't get out, so that's got to be part of a pentomino. And then the only thing you can draw without leaving a cell behind is this. So now this has got to come across the bottom. And I'm getting very excited because I might be able to finish this now, I think. Now, what is this at the bottom? So it could turn up. I mean, it's got quite a few options, to be honest. It really does. What about, maybe we can assume, maybe if we can prove it can't be an I. If it's an I, that would have to be an L, and we'd leave behind a P. No, that doesn't work. Okay, because this L is connected to this L. Good grief. Okay, so it doesn't come to this square. This square is not part of this pentomino, which means it must come that way. That's a junction we can draw in. Now this could still either be a Y or an N. It looks to me like it. I mean, I can almost see the finish here. If that's an N, this could be a Y and that could be an I at the bottom. And that's correct, isn't it? That is the correct solution. So what we should do is disprove y here. Why is y not correct? Well, it's because it has to connect to another y. That's very clear. Okay, so that doesn't work. So this must be an n. This must join to this. This now can't join there because otherwise this cell is isolated. So that's a junction that's forced. This is a junction that's forced. This is a junction, and that's a junction. And that is the finished puzzle. 1 hour 20. I know that's a very, 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 very long time. But that is what you get from Gliperal. I have no idea if that is how you're meant to solve this. That was the way I solved it. It was a lot of diddling about with mod 5 and symmetrical 10-cell regions, but I did finish it, and I'm quite proud of that. I'm so sorry it's taken so long. Let me know in the comments if you managed to solve it. Let me know what I missed. I mean, it's very easy to miss possible pentomino arrangements in this sort of puzzle. I did really do my best to be as rigorous as I can. And yeah, thanks so much for sticking with me and watching it. Gliperal, take a bow. And Gliperal, if you are watching this, please, please, please make a video about how you set this puzzle, because I have not got a Scooby-Doo how you would go about creating this. I mean, to make a tight logical path, and I think it was a tight logical path, it was incredibly hard to find, but I did it purely logically. And I know there'll be loads of people out there who bifurcate this puzzle, but I reckon a puzzle like this is almost resistant to bifurcation because there are so many options. I mean, for that reason, this puzzle should appear in the World Puzzle Championship as the deciding puzzle, because if it is immune to bifurcation, then that is magnificent, and you should take a bow for that as well. Anyway, but please, I'd love to know how you set this. It really is quite something, and I'll shut up now. And thanks for watching. We'll be back later with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.